So before Michael starts, Michael, where are you? Michael Johnson? You're used to that we always do a kind of musical show, and this is what I do now, you know. Well, you remember the duck walk last time you've been here? Chuck Berry? Okay. This is a present from Sander Nijens and from Jan van Ivo van Leuven. It's a typeface, the first typeface that was made for citizens of a city. Thank you, Lucas, for reminding me. And that has a special symbol that was published here at TYPO Berlin this afternoon for the first time. And this symbol is called Yeah. And it's a special expression that is used from the people of Tilburg. And Sander donated this symbol to TYPO Berlin. And this is an honor for our conference. Thank you very much. So we are close to finish TYPO, the last talk, and the party, of course, will happen. Thanks very much for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the conference like I do. I've seen many inspirational talks from interesting people from all over the world, and I loved to see it. This was the 22nd TYPO conference, and it was the third conference under Monotype's care. And as I promised some years before, we tried to get better and better and bigger, and we proved this promise. We have founded a new conference, the TYPO Labs, that happened 6 weeks before. We've incorporated the brand talks in this conference, and we like to continue this next year. We will have brand talks all over the place, not just in the TYPO show. Thank you. I'm glad you like the idea. By the way, TYPO 2018 has just started. We have a date. It's May 17 to 19th. The theme will be Trigger. It will be here again. And we already sold 2 tickets. So the ticket store is already online. So don't hesitate. You know, when you leave the city and you're at home, order the ticket for the next TYPO conference. This conference would not be possible without the help of very many people. And most of them you can't see, but I will change this and will beg them to come up stage and you can give them a hand. First, I'd like to thank our moderators, Sonja, Johannes, Indra, and Stephen.
He also says moderator.
From here, stage will be really, really crowded. Thank you.
Danke dir.
Thanks.
No kiss? No.
The interpreters, Astrid Gese, Tanja Barbian, Jana Zweiron, and Leo Baminz. Thank you very much. Then I'd like to thank the House of Cultures that we can stay here. By the way, we are the only event that is allowed to make a conference in this building. And this is a real honor, and we are happy to continue this tradition. Thank you very much to the House of Cultures. Representing the Technic guys, I like to see Jochen Everts and Nils Töpfer here, and thank you also to BTL for the projection technology. A big thank you to the video team, Ape Unit, who take care of the live stream, and they record all the talks, and most of the talks are already online to view for everybody. All the brand talks are online. And thank you for Sven and Sebastian, who made the video documentation and now make a nice movie from this. Thank you very much. I hope you've noticed that we've been very active in the social media channels to publish photos, texts, quotes, images, and everything. And we've done this with the help of a huge group of people. First, I'd like to thank Tanya and Helene, who are our new PR person, the news team that was established by Sonja and Sabine. Please come all on stage. The news team who write blog entries, Twitter, Instagram, podcasts, blog entries, photographs, videos. Thanks a lot. Thanks to the photographers, Gerhard Kastner, Norman Posselt, Sebastian Weiss, and Mark Eckert. Please come on stage. Norman, Mark, last year we lost a member of the TYPO team, and funnily, half a year later, he came back to us because he didn't like the job he just started. Carlo, are you here? Please come on stage. Carlo, he's responsible for logistics and sponsors. You've seen around about 100 people with blue shirts. This is the TYPO crew, and Anna took care of the TYPO crew. Anna, would you please come up on stage? Sad news again, but maybe she will come back half a year later. Franziska Paschau, she will leave us. Franziska, please come up on stage. Her job, a big thank you. She did a great job, not just taking care of the speakers, and this is really important. All the speakers come up in good mood. We take care of them. But this year she also did much work for the program and compiled the program. I nearly had nothing to do with this. She did nearly 90% of the program. Thank you very much, Franziska. Last but not least, the tradition. Where's Benno, mastermind of TYPO Berlin? Benno, please come up on stage. Kommt ihr bitte mal alle vor, Bühnenrand? Thank you for coming.
Du hast Claudia vergessen.
Oh, Claudia. Claudia, please. No, just a second. Give me the paper. Claudia, she's responsible for all the nice things that you see on stage and downstairs and upstairs. The photo booth. Claudia, please come on stage. Often she's not... I forgot her. In recent years, Claudia was already at the party and she prepared things, but now she's here and I'm happy that you're with us on stage. Thank you very much. I hope we see most of you next year at TYPO Berlin 2018 Trigger. Thank you.
And I think we shouldn't forget to thank Jürgen, because he organized everything. That's Jürgen Siebert.
Ja, danke auch.
Are you ready? Okay. So, last talk. And back to some quality stuff. Our last guest for today and for the TYPO is Michael Johnson. Some of you might have seen him yesterday when he opened the brand talks. Michael is creative director and founder of Johnson Banks, a London-based design agency, and he will talk about openness. It's a plaidoyer for more openness as designers, especially with our clients. Michael says, as a designer, we have to be more transparent, we have to explain better what we do, and not make a science of it. The result is, everything is easier. Welcome, Michael Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a little worried because I don't know how I'm going to follow Eric. He was fantastic. He's at the back, but if we give a big round of applause to Eric Kessels, he'll probably hear us. And yes, I am going to talk about openness. I was going to talk about saying thank you to the TYPO team, but that was such an extensive thank you that I'm going to say great, and it's lovely to be here. This is my third time at TYPO, and I've never spoke at the end, so forgive me. This is a little, this is a little nervous-making. 1,500 people, no pressure. And I thought a little bit about the theme. The Wanderlust theme, I think, is a great theme, and it expresses what I'm going to talk about. And I will try and do this by 8 o'clock, so we can all get out and get a drink. I'm going to try and talk about three things. How we should open up what we do. I think that designers are a little guilty of protecting the way that we work, okay? I'm going to talk about that. How we do it, how we work. What are the processes we use? And then I'm going to talk, the last thing I'm going to talk about is making a difference to the world, okay? So there's just three things that I'm going to talk about this evening. And my job, technically speaking, I'm a brander. Branding is what I do. Now, I know there's a lot of designers, illustrators, typographers, so I'm going to try and make this relevant to you, because not everybody does branding every day, not everybody understands branding, but the thing about branding is it's everywhere, for good and for bad, okay? So branding has been with us a long time. Here's a very famous painting by Manet, and can you see the brand in this painting? Anybody see it? Here. That is the Bass beer, okay? That's the red triangle of Bass beer. Now, that was registered in 1875 as one of the first ever registered trademarks, And that's, you've got to wonder how long they took on that concept. Do you think they did a few visuals? And then they decided that maybe they'd stick with the red triangle. No, I'm joking. But that has been in existence for 150 years, this idea. And so branding is kind of surrounds us, whether we like it or not. You may not like the fact that Odin and St. Nick eventually got recolored by Coca-Cola. Now, this is a little weird, of course, because these, if you don't know them, these are the famous illustrations from the 30s where Coca-Cola, for the first time, recolored St. Nick's coat, okay? So you could argue that Christmas was branded, okay? Sorry, but I am the bearer of bad news. It will get better, I promise. Brands are all around us. We fly, many of you will fly in a brand tomorrow. If you think about it, all airplanes arrive somewhere at an airport in the world a little bit like this, yes? Or a plain, white, pressurized white tube, okay? There is no brand here. This is the product, yet they come out, and all of a sudden they make you think of things. British Airways makes you think of one thing, Lufthansa another, Virgin Atlantic makes you think of having an all-day party. Incidentally, I don't know if you know, but British Airways for a long time would talk about being the world's favorite airline. Did you know this? But eventually they had to stop saying that because Lufthansa became the world's favorite airline. So congratulations to Lufthansa there. But the feeling you get on these different planes is very different to how you feel on a Virgin flight or a Lufthansa flight or a budget airline. Sometimes people can use symbols and imageries in a very unusual and very powerful way. You may never have seen this. This is from England. This is in the south of England. Every year, around the time of Guy Fawkes Night, they remember 17 Protestant martyrs by marching through the streets with lit crosses, okay? And that's the symbol that they have appropriated and have done for hundreds of years. That is the brand that they have used, whereas the KKK, you could argue, use a very similar brand, but they use it for a very different reason. If we take the same symbol, St. Peter turned the cross upside down because he felt that he should not be buried in the same way as Christ. But to another person, it's a symbol of Satanism and the Antichrist. So that's just one symbol done 4 different ways. Another interesting thing is that people can take all sorts of aspects of branding. Some of you, the guitar players in the audience, like Jürgen, will know this is the famous English orange amplifier. It's not the same orange as that orange, okay? And it's not the same orange as this orange, that we've been observing a great deal this weekend. But this orange means very different things to different people. And it's interesting how all of these different people can take the same color and the same idea, and it can be there. It's kind of weird, isn't it? If you go and march in Northern Ireland, there's a different type of orange. This is the orange order. And if you go to the Brandenburg Gate, you can buy a happy sausage as well, which is also orange. And that's a pretty weird-looking sausage to me, but there you go. Wurst happy. No, weird. Anyway, you can also brand a word. Whether we like this or not, you can brand a word. And I know this is painful, especially painful for me, coming from a city that voted 75% to stay in Europe. I promise we did. Yet, the people who wanted to stay in Europe had this rather soppy-looking word, and they were faced with this word, which is, you could argue, a much better branded word. Okay, and we have just escaped this, thank goodness. Okay, so even brands can be, the words that we use for a brand can be incredibly powerful. So, it's everywhere, okay, whether we like it or not. But it is really, really confusing. The language, the vernacular, the pictures, the symbols, it's pretty hard to unpick all of this. In fact, you could kind of say that it was like a black box, and maybe people like me have been slightly responsible for creating this black box, because there's this thing about the client problem comes in from the left into the black box, and out comes the solution. We, the great graphic designers, the great brand consultants, will solve this. We will keep it to ourselves, of course, but we will solve it. Now, I've been thinking for some time that I didn't really like this. I didn't like the idea of being the guy standing on stage, being the wizard, Come to me, I will flash my wand, and everything will be perfect. I don't really like this idea of being the wizard, okay. I think some designers do. Let's be completely honest. Some designers would love to stay here and say, you don't really know how to do it, but I do. But I've been thinking this last few years, couple of years really, maybe because I'm getting older, is that it's ridiculous to pretend to be the wizard. Some of this stuff should be shared, and some of it should be shared out. And maybe what I'm about to tell you is going to put me out of a job, but I don't really care really, because I think it's daft to go back to those boxes and to be worshipping all of these wizards, okay. So, but for a long time, to be honest, it didn't really affect me. I was a graphic designer. I did nice little brochures. I did funny stamps. I did postcards that were in the shape of letters, and you could send a letter, boom, I got lots of applause and won awards and all that. Great. Because my process, in a way, was very simple. I would take a brief, I would design something, and then we'd just get on with it, okay? So it was very simple. But then I started to think, well, my life was changing, okay? The first half of my business, first 10 years of Johnson Banks, we did things like this on the left. But then we started to do much bigger, much more time-intensive projects, bigger brands, working for airlines, for not-for-profits, working for museums. And I started to think that I didn't really know how to get over this line. I needed a bit of help, okay? So I started looking around for some help. And the thing is that there is nothing in here. It's difficult to get inside this box, okay? So I think, well, that's not very helpful. So I started doing what I think a lot of graphic designers do, is they start buying books and reading books. Now, the odd thing about my business, the branding business, is there's a shitload of books on the left-hand side, tend to be smaller, tend to be written by people who used to be the marketing director of Starbucks or this, that, and the other, tend to be, here's all my knowledge, and I, the great one, will give it all to you. They tend to be the kind of books that you buy at the airport, and you'd think, oh, by the time I land, I'm going to be an expert. And then there's the other type of book, which this audience probably knows more about, which is the logo and symbol book, okay? And it's quite telling, isn't it, that there are two different piles, yeah? Because the two different sides of the story are completely different. My old boss, Wally Olins, his books are on the left-hand side. Debbie Milliman, who spoke yesterday, is on the left-hand side. Yet all of the designers, I suppose the wizards, if you like, are on the right-hand side. And there's very little in the middle. And that's a shitload of books to have to read to understand how to do this. Okay, so that's what's been driving me, really, into what I've been doing the last couple of years. And also, it's true that the business that I work in and some of you work in is also slightly divided, a bit like the books. There's a guy or some girl, and this person loves these kind of things, loves Gantt charts and process and structure. Yeah, actually, I'm in Germany, so I have to be a little careful what I say about process and structure. But don't take personally. But then on the right-hand side, there's the difficult designer, wearing the right glasses and lobbying very hard for his or her favorite typeface happens to be circular at the moment. I'm sure that'll change next week. So there's a kind of split, isn't there, between these two? As there was a split between the books, there's a split between the people doing the work. So I wanted to kind of get over that line, if you like, and kind of open up the things that we do. And as I say, this kind of thing might put me out of business, what I'm going to show you next. But because I found all the words and all the language that people use really, really confusing, and you probably do too. Ideas, essences, visions, differentials, storytelling, behaviors, yada, 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 yada. And this didn't help me either. It certainly didn't help many of my clients who would say to me, Michael, I don't understand what you're saying to me. Why is an essence not a story? Or is a narrative a vision? Or is a mission, it would go on and on and on. And if you looked, I started to look at the way that we work, the way that I work, and realized that the design bit, if you like, number 3, was the beginning of my old design process. But actually, we spend a shitload of time investigating. We spend a whole solid chunk of time thinking about where an organization should go, how we would define it. And then we'd work out how to bridge the gap between that and the design, and then we'd implement. So I've been thinking about the process of this for about a decade. I've been sticking it into a book, indeed. Eric talked about his book. I'm going to talk very briefly about mine, don't worry. And it is interesting when you think about how you work and if you could record it. And then, most importantly, could you share that? Share it with the world, open it up. Now, what I'm going to talk about very briefly is this bit here, which a lot of the designers aren't completely sure about. And really, all it means is that instead of kind of going online and finding these mad, crazy-looking diagrams, which I find as confusing as you, is that I thought, well, oh shit, I've decided to write a book about branding. I've got to make a decision about what to do here. And I was slightly panicking at one point. Thought, oh no, what have I done? And then I thought, well, actually, if you put them all on top of each other, they broadly say the same thing. And then we started experimenting with our clients. And instead of telling them all these kind of really confusing and really weird abstract words, we started asking just very, very simple questions. What do we do? How do we do it? So if you imagine you're an organization, who are we here for? What makes us different? What do we value the most? What's our personality? Just very simple questions. So I'll give you a couple of examples. What do we do and how do we do it? So you probably know about Tesla, yeah? You've heard about Tesla cars. The thing about Tesla, they don't advertise at all. All they do is they don't spend any money on advertising. They put all of their money into R&D, manufacturing and design. All they do is make a best car that they can make, okay? So they are entirely defined, if you like, by what they do. I'll give you another quick example. Who are we here for? The bizarre kind of streetwear brand Supreme do not want me to go to Supreme in London or the other shops in cities around the world and queue up for when there's a clothing drop, because they have a very clear idea of who their target market is. It's Kate Moss, obviously. Although I'm really confused about this. This is a link up between Supreme and Louis Vuitton, which I can't really work out at all. But anyway, maybe there's a certain type of skating surfer who likes, I don't know, who likes nice luggage. Go figure, as they say. What makes us different? And you'd be amazed. Next time you're in a meeting with a client who doesn't really know what they're doing or why they're there or what they're thinking about, well, ask them some of these questions. Why are you different? Just ask them. If they can't answer that question, then there's a strong case for just getting out of the meeting, because if they can't tell you why they're different, well, there's not much point in doing it. The reason why people like me stand on stage and talk about this beautiful old scheme for Avis is because this is a fantastic example of finding out what was different about an organization. Avis couldn't compete with Hertz. All they could find out was that they tried harder than the other people. If you have a complaint, call the president of Avis. His number is. We're the number 2 in rent-a-car. Go with us. We can't afford dirty ashtrays. So in a way, it's this kind of humility pitch. And the amazing thing about this slide is it's nearly 60 years old. This idea of trying harder is what has made this organization work for nearly 60 years. That's a pretty good idea. I don't worry, I'm not going to go through all of this, but I just wanted to give you a little glimpse of this, really. But the bit in the middle is a really important bit. Why are we here? Because if you can't answer that, why am I here? If you can't really justify that to yourself, or you can't say to your boss, or your boss can't tell you why you're here, then that's not a good thing. So it's really important to help people do this, in my humble opinion. So I'm just going to give you a really quick example. We've been working with a global NGO called Action contre la faim, who've just started in Germany, I think. And this is a classic kind of before slide, a bit of a mess all over the world. Not really clear, 40 years old, Francophile, hence the name. So we were brought in to try and help them find out why they were here and redesign what they already had. So we started here, and we thought, well, we started asking questions about what it was that drove them, what was their reason to be, if you like. And it became pretty clear that the reason why they were there is because they knew they were for something and they were against something. And we discovered that there was a for and against. This idea of the for and against worked in any language. We're for crops, we're against drought, we're for changing minds, we're against indifference, for freedom from hunger, for everyone for good, for action against hunger. So this was just a way of writing down what they stood for. Okay, that's all it is. It's just a really simple idea. Then the next problem really was what to do with this. Now this is a confusing symbol. Some people, about 30% of them, thought it was fantastic, the best thing they've ever known. Another 26.5% people thought they were farmers, and the other 52% thought that they were marijuana growers. Okay. Now, so imagine you're running a global NGO, and everyone thinks you're a weed seller. It's not an ideal situation. Okay. So we said, well, after lots of discussion and a couple of false starts, we agreed that what we should do is we should find a way for this to become something else, become a completely revised symbol, if you like, so that the plant would become more symbolic. The root, which confused everyone, should be, well, could it be about water? So the confusing farming marijuana symbol becomes food and water, becomes very simple. And this is an idea that has to be able to use across the world in 54 countries. And it also has to be used by people who can't even read. So they have to be able to see that when the truck arrives, the food and water people are here. Oh, look, everyone's here. And we've just been simply rolling this out and using it in lots of different languages, and you see some of the examples here. So that's a good example, I think, of trying to work out, being clear about what someone's there to do, and then solving it from a design perspective. Okay, so that's kind of opening up what we do. And if you think about it, I've just told you exactly how I work and have been working for the last 15 years, and I put it all on the slides, and I've just shared it with all of you, and you can all steal it, okay? I don't mind, it's fine. And that's kind of part of why I'm here, really, just to say that I think it's time that we started to share these kind of things. We'll come back to this later. Now, second part of the story, open up how we work. Okay, this is where it gets rather intriguing. So there's the wizard, okay, we've met the wizard. And then there's the other thing, which is when you do a big global rebrand for someone, whoever it may be, it has to be done in secret, okay? So this is what we all know, yeah? It's done in secret, and then there's a huge hoopla when something is done and when it's launched. And everyone goes, oh wow, or they lay into online. There seems to be only two ways that this can work. So we were approached a little over a year ago by the Californian internet internet experts, Mozilla. You will probably know them best for the Firefox logo on the left-hand side there, but they also do a shitload of other stuff. So they approached us via email, and they said, we'd like to get your input into a project that we're proposing, and we'd like to see if you're interested in doing it. And there was this interesting little bit, I think on page 4 of their note to us. Could we share the rebrand with everyone, they said. And we wondered what this really meant. So we submitted some costings, and then, in fact, we flew to California, and we talked to them about it. And we said, what did you mean by sharing? And they said, oh, well, we're really interested in doing this project in the open. We're interested in rebranding ourselves, but so that everyone can see the process. So this is why it links to my first section, if you like. So we're thinking, Okay, it's not good. There isn't good precedent for this, if you think about it. I don't know if you remember when Gap tried to rebrand a few years ago, it just turned into a shitstorm online, yeah, where the blue thing, top left, was proposed. University of California tried something, that got pulled. Because basically, people just laid into it online. You may also remember that Yahoo, for 30 days, showed us 29 different logos and then revealed the final logo. The truth is, I think after about 4 days, we all got bored and no one gave a shit anymore. That's if I'm completely honest. So there's a kind of disappointment. There's backlash, disappointment. And then some people, there's just indifference. You know, no one really cares about all the different times that MySpace changed their logo. So this isn't good. And then there's another factor, is that an idea can go really, really wrong. Okay, we've just seen this example. This is hugely terrible, of course. Funny, but terrible. You know, I especially love this, found this online. Hi, Kendall, sweetie. I just wanted to go over your schedule for today. You have the Fendi shoot at noon, and then you're going to end police brutality at 2, and then you've got Nobu for dinner. Okay, so this is Kendall. Yeah, she's trying to give the guy a can of Pepsi, and it all goes completely wrong. And it turned into a monumental clusterfuck online, basically. So it's a difficult area to work in, but they said to us, Mozilla said to us, look, we're an open source software company. Okay, Michael, just concentrate. We want to rebrand in the open. This is what we do. We do code. We do it in the open. People comment, so we want to do it in the same way. So we sort of gulped, if I'm honest. We thought, oh dear, you know, and also thought, well, what could happen? What could go wrong? Oh, the typo could go wrong. That's true. Anyway, moving quickly on. Wow, I've got to laugh for a typo. That's brilliant. Okay, so Mozilla sent us some really interesting information about themselves. One of the reasons why we thought, well, maybe we could do this is because the stuff that they sent us was itself really interesting. They said they were gutsy, they were independent, they wanted to be for good. The kind of things that we love to hear. They talked about heart and soul and skin. They talked about fighting for internet freedom and being a change agent, the greater good, open and accessible internet. So, now, normally, the slide like this that you get from a client isn't that great. And we looked at this and thought, well, actually, this is very interesting stuff. And we started to work through it with them and started to think about how you would define it, a bit like I did 10 minutes ago with ACF. Would you be about taking a stand, or would you be about a positive impact on humanity, being open, or being the pioneers or the maker spirit? Okay. I'm not going to go into this in massive detail, but so this is what we're doing with the words, trying to define where they could go. Yeah, and this itself was then shared online. You can go online and read every single bit of this process. You can read every single bit of narrative. You can critique it if you so wish. And we did put this stuff online, and there was some interest in it. But what happened was that when we got to the design stage, that's when the floodgates kind of opened. Okay, so imagine you're doing the world's largest a huge global rebrand, and you're doing it in the open. You're designing the first design approaches, and then you know that they're going to go online. So we're designing in our studio, and it's a very pressurized situation, and we're sharing this with the client, and eventually there are 7 routes, and they go out into the ether onto a special blog that was created on which people could comment. Now, in the press, it wasn't bad, actually. In the press, it weren't bad. Okay, Mozilla is switching, but, not too bad. Creative Review wrote about it. 7 design routes released for debate. Brand New talked about it. There's a lovely quote here. Here is the moment we've been waiting for on Johnson Banks have probably not been the first round of logo explorations for Mozilla's new logo. So that wasn't too bad. Then what happened was this went onto the project blog, and you start to see there, that's a couple of days in, 574 comments. I think it now stands at 3,000. Okay, so basically, everything that could go wrong went wrong. We started to get people suggesting how we should have done it, which was, good. It's open source. everyone. It's like, oh, no. So we've had amends and suggestions. We've also had some pointers, useful. Okay, thank you, that's really helpful. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, oh, look, spinning foxes around the world, and yeah, none of these look like anything else. Shouldn't be cruel, especially when it's been live streamed. Whoops. Anyway, as I say, this is all online anyway, so. We've had a critique, and we have had some people pointing out that there are genitals in our designs, which is a little cruel, I think. I am speechless, and not positively, said this person. This is work from an agency, looks amateurish, So this is, you get 3,000 comments on your work, this happens. I wouldn't rate any of them over 4. Step 1, eliminate anything that looks like genitals. I didn't think they looked like genitals. First one reminds me of vagina. No definite article or indefinite, not a vagina or the vagina, or just vagina. Okay, fair enough. Okay, well, that's fair enough. Free speech. We've had what we call in English a shit sandwich. Now, there has been some debate over the last couple of days about how to translate a shit sandwich. He says, looking at translators. It's quite a hard thing to explain. Apparently, there is a similar thing in German culture called a Senf Berliner, yeah, where you get the sticky. Have I got this right? The sticky donut, with mustard inside. Okay, so we have had all sorts of shit sandwiches. Here's my favorite. There's some great creative work going on here. Kudos to your team for stretching themselves and not taking the safe, refresh approach. That said, from these examples, it seems very clear to me that your team needs the help of a seasoned identity expert. So it's like, oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, that's really lovely of you. Super. Anyway, so we went from 7 designs down to the next set of designs, which we went to 4 designs. Just to give you a little kind of update of where we got to, we started looking at how to get code into the symbols. We even started to think about, could we bring back one of their old logos and kind of bring it back to life? Now, many of you in the audience will never have seen this. This is the Mosaic browser from the 90s. Really, Netscape and what became Mozilla was set up as a Mosaic killer, and they all loved Godzilla, okay? So that's how they got to Mozilla, okay, just in case you're wondering. And they had this crazy-looking dinosaur for a while. And so one of the things we were asked to do, and in fact, we really enjoyed doing this, was think about, could we bring the crazy dinosaur back to life? And, look at that, nice bits of type there. And also, importantly, he can also chomp. So he could chomp things he didn't like, like bad code or something like that. Anyway, there's quite a lot of support for him. These 4 routes were shown around the world. Focus groups in Guatemala and Brazil, I don't know, and the Cayman Islands use Firefox a lot, apparently. No, I'm joking. But 100 million people a day still use Firefox, so it's quite a big deal, this. Anyway. So this then got down to a couple of routes. As I say, I'm sharing my entire design process with you, so I'm standing naked on the stage at the moment, and you're all sitting there going, oh, this isn't very good, I don't like that one, I liked number 3, but then it went, That was a really crap German accent, I'm so sorry. We really, really struggled. 49.5% of people loved Dino, as he became known, or she became known, sorry. But 49.5%, not quite enough, were really in love with it. And we were struggling. You can see us struggling to get the type to work. And I'm thinking, no, I liked it the first time, and lots of arguments online. It's pretty tough doing something like this on a video conference, got to tell you. But we started to realize that there was another idea that had stayed in there right from the beginning, which is based on the internet protocol, the HTTP protocol : // and we were starting to realize that this idea was working quite nicely, that we could place it at the beginning of something and sort of allude to their position at the basis of the internet. No one walls my garden, the source of open source. This is us extending it, thinking about how it could glitch, how we could do like highlighting features. This is us testing the idea as we went along. Then we started to realize that we could start a sentence with Mozilla, and then, if you like, the browser bar could continue, and then all sorts of things could follow the work, the name that had already started. And so we finally got to a place a bit like this, where we were deliberately kind of making the whole thing kind of crazy, okay? We were trying to be about the craziness of the internet and say that the internet follows Mozilla, and Mozilla is at the beginning of the conversation. And this eventually became the idea that went through. And here's the final thing. So this is how it eventually became the final logos. We could build in words around it and definitions about who they are and what they do. We could also bring in imagery. We did a really lovely typeface with Peter Billack. I don't know if he's here, but this is Peter's typeface that links directly to the imagery. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Wait. Oh, I really confused myself there. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, Peter's typeface, brilliant. I pressed the wrong button, sorry. Whoops. Stupid Englishman. Anyway, I'm sorry. Anyway, so you start to see what happens here. We can start to get a palette for Mozilla of craziness. And this took a bit of persuading, to be honest, because this is quite a crazy-looking scheme. And remember, we've been through a 4-5-month design process entirely in the open with people laying into it. But we're going, come on, guys, you've got to go for it. You are Mozilla. And eventually they agreed. And you can go to the Open Design blog and see every single stage of this, should you want to share my pain. But it's very interesting. And this is a quick little short 1-minuter that we made to kind of sum it up. So if there's a bit of audio, if you could hit the button. Thank you. That's the product of that process. Thank you. So, I mean, people ask me usually a similar point is, well, what would have happened if it hadn't been done in the open? The truth is, I can't really tell you. I do know that from the beginning, the coding community really loved this idea. It stayed in there, and it's a nice-looking scheme. We just happened to do every stage of it in public, which made it slightly stressful. So I don't necessarily recommend it for every project, but anyway. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to talk about, just for the last 5-10 minutes, I promised we'd get out by 8. Might be 5 past, sorry. Making a difference. So there's been people talking throughout the TYPO about making a difference, and it is something that I'm very intrigued about. If you go to our website, it talks about making a difference on the homepage. It's really, really important to me, has become increasingly important over the last 10 years to me. And I'll try and give you a bit of insight into that and show you one project which kind of sums up what I mean. And now we have been trying to make a difference for quite a while. This is one of our oldest not-for-profit symbols that we designed for Shelter, who are a homelessness charity in England. And, you know, now lovely name, nice idea, a simple bit of typography, sorry, in Helvetica, sorry about that, never mind. Moving on. But the truth is that we were doing things like this and we weren't really turning it into a business model of any sort. And then certain things started to happen. And certainly one of the things that turned my view about the way that designers work for charities, not-for-profits, they work for universities, NGOs, we would say in English, non-governmental organizations. I started to think about this more, and the thing that tipped me actually was Fukushima, the 2011, which we will all remember, of course. Here are some of the pictures of that event. I remember I personally love Japan. I've been to Tokyo 1 million times. And I've also been to Sendai, very close to Fukushima. And this kind of really struck home with me, looking at the images. And the thing that kind of really worried me was that the graphic design community, the best that we could do was design a poster. Okay, so it sounds a little serious, this. It's a serious message after Eric's jollity, but what really troubled me about this was that, is this the best that we could do? And graphic designers obviously love that Tokyo, that Japanese symbol, oh, we can make a nice poster of it. And I was really troubled by this, not because there wasn't nice design, but there were millions and millions of people in danger because of a terrible disaster, and all that we could do was design a poster. And I don't think a poster can change the world. I'm really sorry, but I really don't think it can. And so I started to think quite hard about this. In fact, one of the posters had been done by a big ad agency, and they said that we've raised £20,000 because of this. And I remember thinking at the time, well, yeah, that's all very well, but how would you raise $2 billion? How would you really do it? What would have to change for graphic design, brand community, illustration, whatever we represent in this hall? How could we change the way that we communicate with the world and make what we do mean a bit more? So stop designing posters and do something much more significant. Okay. Now, luckily, something came up, a project came up, and where we could really kind of start to test some of these ideas. And but before it came up, we'd had to adjust a little bit in the way that we worked, okay? So as I started to work with clients who didn't have that much money, I had to adjust to the fact that they usually ate their lunch in the meeting, which I found a little weird. So I'm sitting down about setting up to do a presentation, and they're eating their noodles in front of me. But this, I discovered, was the normal lingua franca of this sector that I was working in. I discovered that we couldn't charge as much, so I couldn't wear particularly nice clothes anymore, which is fine. There's no problem. I also discovered that the projects could be a complete and utter clusterfuck of difficulties and politics and everyone disagreeing about everything that they were saying. So I'll give you an example. This project I showed you, we started off, oh, that's a little light, sorry. Oh, we started off with a series of designs that the North Americans had views about that were different to the Europeans. Okay, fair enough. Then we did a few more designs, and then all 54 countries had a view, okay? So that, all right, yes, let's take that on board. Yeah, we see where you're going with this, we'd say to them. And then we got down to our final route, and then everybody mashed in. Okay, so that gives you a little insight into some of the difficulties of these kind of projects. And so I'm going to show you one last example where we think that we've been trying to make a genuine difference. And it actually concerns Cambridge University, who, even though they are kind of the dreaming spires of Cambridge, and most people think that Cambridge have tons of money. They actually don't. They have money for undergraduates, but they don't actually have much money for research. They've been known throughout 800 years for all of their inventions and discoveries, but paradoxically, they don't have that much money. Certainly nowhere near as much money as the American universities. Okay, so we were tasked to try and bring this together and enable them to raise a bit of cash. It's as simple as that, really. So we looked at what other organizations around the world did, and here's a kind of map, a classic sort of map of what everyone else is doing. Most of the North Americans talking about the future, the Europeans being a bit more thoughtful. And then we started to think about, well, what Cambridge had. The University of Cambridge, they've been around for 800 years. Darwin, Erasmus, Malthus, Wordsworth, Coleridge, a most amazing list of people who'd been to Cambridge and done the most amazing things. They had and are having a huge impact on the world. And we were starting to think about this idea of having had an impact and giving it to the world. How could you talk about that? So there was then a little jump, and it's hard to explain the little jump, but the jump came when we turned this idea of For the World from Cambridge into 4 words. Dear world, yours Cambridge. And all of a sudden this became a lot more personal. It became like a little letter to the world from an institution. And this was quite a controversial idea for them. And as you can imagine, they're a university. Why were you writing a letter to the world, Michael? You're an idiot. What are you doing? Have you lost your mind? And then we started to say to them, well, no, we think this could be a really interesting idea. We started to show them ideas about how we could turn this into like a letter graphic And then we started to think about how we could do applications of this. Most people arrive in Cambridge by train. Dear world, the people who arrive in this city change Cambridge. The ideas that leave this city change the world. So you arrive at the station and you're immediately in the zone of what Cambridge is all about, understanding how they work. You also walk around the city and you realize that there's millions of posters for events, and we thought it'd be very interesting to use this idea, this vernacular, and do things about the people who'd been to Cambridge. What would Charles Darwin's poster be? You know, 2 human CC apes. So I've been thinking about these finches, okay? So he famously did his research on finches and imagining what his little email would be to the world. Or, Isaac Newton famously discovered gravity in a corridor in Cambridge. Dear world, what goes up must come down. Isaac Newton, Trinity College, 1660. And we then started to get kind of into this idea and exploring how we could use it. Monty Python, who you probably know, 4/5 of them went to Cambridge. There's a famous sketch about a dead parrot. Hello, I wish to register a complaint. The famous first line of this very famous sketch. If you've never seen it, look it up. It's very funny. Other things happen in Cambridge that we didn't even realize. Most graphic designers would think this is Peter Saville. In fact, it's actually pulsars. The first reading of pulsars, this was discovered at Cambridge, and then it was used by New Order and Peter Saville for a Joy Division sleeve. But it was actually, it's a reading of a pulsar that was made in 1967, amazingly. So we just kept finding all these amazing things. This idea, we pitched this idea to them of doing these kind of mad bits of comms, and then we were supposed to do 10, and in the end we did 42. And some of them are, Dear Quentin Black, No Sugar, Yours Paul, those are the guys that basically invented the webcam. And they did it because they wanted to keep an eye on the coffee pot, but it wasn't on their floor. So they invented a way to keep an eye on it, so they didn't have to walk down to the other floor to see if there's any coffee. Anyway, these stories go on and on. John Venn went to Cambridge. Dear world, I've had an idea for a diagram. Think you might like it, love it, / both. Anyway, maybe a little subtle for you guys. Marlowe, Christopher Marlowe went to Cambridge, and famously just before Shakespeare got very famous, Dear Shakespeare, stick at it, you have talent, yours, Marlowe. So we're having a lot of fun doing this work. Online, you sent us Newton, we sent you gravity, you sent us Darwin, we sent you evolution. You sent us William and Samuel, we sent you Wordsworth and Coleridge. So you can see we're using this language idea all the way through the work that we did. Then we started to work out how to explain the idea to people. So this is a launch using 270-degree projections. We ended events with fireworks and things like this, extraordinary 30-meter fireworks. And then we started to do a series of little films to help them explain the idea. So I'm going to show little clips of some films now. If we could put the audio up, that would be great.
Dear world, how do you measure the impact of a university?
We could count the Nobel Prizes, or the number of students who have led countries, or won Olympic medals.
We could bombard you with neutrons, protons, and pulsars.
Talk you through theories.
Walk you through discoveries.
Draw the diagrams.
Or the conclusions.
We could count the golden daffodils.
Or reflect that it really is better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all.
But the real impact of Cambridge is the effect that it's had on people's lives.
That's a little bit of one film we made for them. And we also made another series of films where we would ask famous people what they think Cambridge meant to them and what they thought that Cambridge should do next. So here's a little clip of one of those.
Dear Cambridge, here's an important problem I'd like to have you solve. We're still at risk that a very small group of people could, either through bioterrorism, nuclear weapons, or some cyber attack, cause huge damage.
One of the great problems facing the world is the generation of energy. it has caused so much problems with the production of carbon dioxide. And yet we only use 1/500th part of the amount of energy which comes from the sun.
And we also found that we could use the idea to end these films as though you were scripting it like a letter, which was another nice little touch. Here's another little, let's say end
On a
to
more
the film.
prosaic level, it would be nice if they discovered a way of stopping us getting fat.
I think I would get all the academics to come together and build a time machine, because it would make my life as a historian much, much better, but actually it would also really, really enrich our understanding of the world around us. It'd be really fun.
Dear world.
Yours, Griff.
Yours, Peter.
Best wishes, Claire Balding.
Yours, Rowan.
Yours, Bill Gates.
Yours, Tim Waterstone.
Yours, Boris.
Yours, Barbara.
Yours, David Attenborough.
Yours, Cambridge. Yours, Cambridge.
Yours, Cambridge.
Yours, Cambridge.
And so this kind of continued. It's very unusual, really, for what I used to be a graphic designer, really, and it's quite unusual to be doing this and meeting all of these different people and explaining that we want to make films and we want to make websites and we want to do projections. There in the middle, that's Hugh Bonneville from Downton Abbey. He was at Cambridge, so we got him to do something. And just to end, really, some of the pressures of doing this work is very difficult. They give me very little time, or give the office very little time to solve some of the problems. And one famous example was on a Friday. They emailed and they said, we've really got to get on with something really quick. And I emailed back, I said, what is it? And they said, well, we need you to write a 90-second speech for someone quite important. And I said, okay. And I said, when do you need it? And they said, well, we need it by Monday. I said, well, it's Friday. And they said, yeah, it's really important, though. And I said, well, why is it so important? They said, well, it's because it's Stephen Hawking. And so I'm thinking, oh, okay. Okay, no pressure. And so I sat there at the kitchen table and in the garden at one point trying to write something for Stephen Hawking. And what happens with Stephen Hawking, in case you don't know, is to get his approval on something is sent to him, and his assistants key it into his machine. And then they play it back to him, and he says if he approves or he disapproves. And so luckily, he did approve of what we wrote for him. And that then became this little short, like 1-minute film. If we could have the music up as well, thank you.
Dear world, when I arrived in Cambridge, I was lucky. I was lucky to meet a brilliant minds that broadened my horizons. I was lucky to be given the space to think, and I chose to think about space. I was lucky to find the one place in the world where I could make my mark on the world. But neither Cambridge nor I have finished yet. There are thousands, perhaps millions of students out there who could make their mark on the world. And Cambridge must always be the place where they can do it. The place to ask bolder questions, or solve the problems we don't yet know exist. For the past 800 years, our ideas have been ever present, our impact immense. To transform all of our futures, we can, and we must do more, because we have many more world-changing ideas to give. But, dear world, we cannot do this without you. Yours, Cambridge.
Thank you. So, thanks very much. Kind of gets me every time, that one. So it is unusual, I suppose, to think about how the breadth of an idea like this, how it can go from 4 words, a comma, and 3 dots into all of these different things that you've seen. And it makes me think that this desire to make a difference with what we do is really possible. And if I'm honest, it is actually making a difference. It's raised £900 million already. So that's just in a few years. So that's the kind of effect that this kind of work can have on the world, which is substantial. Anyway, so just to finish, really, what have I tried to talk about? Well, I think that I've tried to say, really, that 3 things have got to go. We've got to get rid of this. We need to share, and you've heard a lot of it over the last 3 days, and I'm trying to do my bit as well by putting it all in a book and probably making myself redundant. I think the whole thing about the wizard standing on stage and explaining it is not enough. I think that all of that work has to be out there and understandable. And I think keeping these secrets from ourselves and our competitors and each other isn't such a smart idea either. So I think that what I want you to kind of leave with, I hope that you will leave with, is that we should share what we do. I think that's really important to do this. We should share how we do it, and I'm hopefully doing a bit of that this evening. And because design can make a difference. It can make a genuine difference to people's lives. And we have the communication skills and the power to do this. But we could do more, and we could all do more. And you can make a difference by the things that you've learned over the last 3 days and maybe some of the things that you've heard about today. So you really can do this. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. I like this idea of total openness because it's the tough way, I know that. And sometimes clients want to be lied, want to be deceived. but are you happy with the Mozilla logo in the end? If you know all the options that they have to be killed, and I mean, it's like kill your darlings, isn't it?
A little, yes, but I think in a way that we knew what we were going into.
Yeah.
We knew the process that we'd signed up to. So.
Yeah. And in a closed shop, I mean, a black box is sometimes just a model to make money, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So why change it?
Well, I think we should share. We should open up the black box, and people should know what's in there. And so that's what I'm trying to do.
I think so too. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Michael
Cheers.
Johnson. So, this is the end of our talks, but it's not the end.